when we first met. I never had Valentines. So I'm like, finally, I'm with this white man. I'm finally gonna get this Valentines where like, I'm gonna have flowers and he's gonna make me dinner and all this stuff. Valentine's Day comes. I had to go out of my way to get a card. I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to get him something. I was so excited. And you didn't have nothing. And I'm like, did you forget it was Valentine's Day? You're like, yes. Hey ladies, welcome to Speak Life Project with Lex. I'm so excited that you stopped in. And today it's going to be a little different, because it's Valentine's week. And I have a special guest, the one and only, my sweet, very sweet hubby.
Why would you even introduce me as a guest, not your I'm my husband?
Because you're a guest on the show.
Oh, well, thank you for having me.
You want to say your name? Because you didn't let me talk?
I'm Lance.
This is Lance. And so I'm excited to talk about the subject today. We're just going to really talk about just couple stuff and Valentine's and what that means to each and every one of us.
Well, they're out there.
As a woman and as a man.
Right.
Because, we have different perspectives around it. As women, we like chocolates and flowers and
here's the
jewelry.
good thing.
I want you to buy me diamond earrings. No, I'm just kidding.
Did you get me on to kind of force me into buying you something?
No, I'm just kidding. But it's ironic because with Valentine's Day, it's like a whole Valentine's month for us because our anniversary is the week before. So you have a double whammy.
I got double expenses.
Right.
But with Valentine's Day, married, single, it's a holiday that people try to participate in.
Right.
Irregardless. And with everything.
They groom us in school.
Right. The little
we have to
things.
bring something to the class. We got to bring cards.
Right.
I remember some of the cards, my mom's like, you ain't bringing that to school. Because some of the cards would say stuff like, will you be my Valentine's? I love you a lot. Or doggy love. Kiss you. And she's like,
Right. And
so
it gets into our little ones early on.
Right.
Knowing or unknowing. And now you're pretty much working off of perceptions.
Yes.
And you were talking about Valentine's, like being a Valentine. I don't think I was anybody's Valentine.
Me neither.
As a kid.
I would bring stuff to the class and stuff, but
junior high school.
I wasn't really anyone's Valentine as well.
I didn't.
You were homeschooled, so your mom was your Valentine. Oh, that's sweet.
But even in youth group, I don't remember someone oh, let's go to a movie.
Because you were supposed to be the one to say, will you be my Valentine?
I was?
Yes, as the boy. But you didn't have game, huh? I'm just kidding.
I didn't. And that's the other thing too, is with my dad working, it was no emphasis on this is how you find a woman or.
So you didn't know. You didn't have direction.
Yeah, I didn't know that getting the flowers, writing. I thought when you bought a Hallmark card, they did the work for you because they're so expensive.
Oh my goodness.
And there's writing inside, and
they're
my writing.
$6.
That's back then they were $4, but still it felt expensive. But I don't write well. I don't.
I mean,
what you saying?
That's true.
Are we having a revelation of how bad my? But I was like, oh, I don't have to write.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a few times I just signed my name like it was a business contract.
So you're just like, I love you a lot.
Roses are red. Da 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 da. You open it up. There's another little story, and you're like, I agree. and so that's just how I was wired, raised, and so you end up raising yourself. Perception.
I mean, that makes sense. So there's the romantic type and there's the non-romantic type. I would categorize you as the non-romantic type.
Yes.
And so, but like you said, if you don't know what that looks like, you don't know what that looks like.
But it comes from movies. So you have
we have what is it called? The rom-coms. Us women, we love the rom-coms.
Well, back in the day you had, I'm not even tracking with is this a romantic?
The romance movies.
Okay, romance
or the
comedies.
Or
And you see them, they work, it always works out so well. There's the build up, the breakup, and then they get back together. Now they've made them horrific where they don't get back together because so many people have broken relationships, but you get a perception that that's what I should have.
Right. And so we love, as women, we're drawn to those types of movies. And so we're like, okay, so that's how it's supposed to be. I can't wait to date and I can't wait to get married because that's how it's going to look. You're just going to fly out of a helicopter and jump down to me and engage, and propose to me. And then this whole picnic is just going to be awaiting for me every Valentine's Day with the flowers. And
so we've been married 8 years.
We've been married 8 years. When we first met.
And I wanted to go there. I don't remember. I don't remember our first Valentine.
I never had Valentines. I was like around ratchet men, so they were like dogs. So it just wasn't like that. And so I'm like, finally, I'm with this white man. Like,
What does mean?
he's a lot older than
I'm
me. I'm
Spanish to a
like,
degree, but what does white man mean? What?
I'm finally gonna get this Valentine's where like I'm gonna have flowers and he's gonna make me dinner and all this stuff. Valentine's Day comes. I had to go out of my way to get a card. I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to get him something. I'm so excited. I come and you didn't have nothing. And I'm like, did you forget it was Valentine's Day? You're like, yes, I forgot.
Well, that and it was a weird like moment because we hadn't like like we were working through how we were gonna start dating. And so it wasn't like rubber stamp, like we started January 7th and we should get, so again, perception.
It was, yeah.
And
but I had a lot of insecurities and rejection. And so I was like, oh my gosh, he doesn't love me.
So did that hurt you?
It did hurt me.
But
then you're like, oh, you made it up for shopping the next day. But
I love where this is going, and I'm fighting not to like take over the whole.
No, I want to
hear. My brain
like,
is like just firing.
That was my perspective. I want to know what yours was, and maybe you just.
It's hard because we all have perception. Like you said, I didn't get you the flowers you wanted, but I made it like. Women love gifts.
No, I didn't say wanting. You gave me no flowers.
No, the next day you said I made it up with shopping.
Yes.
And so in this culture, especially non-sanctified, non-Christian, we're all, and I hate to use the terminology, we're whoring ourselves out. It's like, if you do this, you'll do that. I gotta work extra hours to make up some money. I'll go shopping.
It's almost like bribery.
And I have expectations later tonight. I'm gonna get lucky.
Because I did this for you, now you got to give something back. And love isn't like that. Love is supposed to be laying yourself down for the other person at all costs.
Isn't in 1 Corinthians the whole like, love is kind.
Yes. Love is patient. You put your name in it.
Nowhere in Valentine's is there a card
that like, says that.
But we have
it's like, no, girl, I can't wait to see that
thing. And we have to have a understanding of how does God see love,
right?
Because we don't know how to love ourselves. We don't understand how to love our wife or husband. How do you correctly do it?
Right?
Because the world loves to incorrectly tell us, and then we're all frustrated. And most marriages, people are frustrated with their love life because they're not communicating it. But they're also not loving correctly.
Right. And that's good because we're not communicating it because we don't know. We don't talk about sex enough to know. Like, how are you supposed to just wing it and know? Like, I know it's natural, like, you know what to do, but I'm like, you can't just wing. Like, we need the older generation to say, hey, like, I've been with the same partner for 40, 50 years. This is how you spice it up a little bit, Like, you don't have to talk about that very act,
but there has
like,
to be
maybe ways to like,
But you have to, again, perception.
That's my perspective, anyways.
Enjoy. Why should I build a long-term relationship? And I always have this running joke with men: is show me a older player, and I'll show you somebody who has to deal with leftovers.
Right.
Like the older you get, if you're the player in your 20s, okay, that's fun. That 30s, 40s, if you ain't making big money. What is it? And even at that, like you see these movies, guys in New York, flashy car, the penthouse,
the Bentley and the penthouse.
It's like you want this 20-year-old woman for what? Because she's naive. But it's like eventually, well, go there.
Because she's young and tight. Not even like in that aspect, but like her skin is.
But no, you're go there. But the thing is that. At some point, she's going to get pregnant. At some point, she's going to want to build a house.
She's different.
His perception with her is no longer
the
same. And, one thing I heard with marriages is that men hope to marry the wife that she never changes, that she still has that, like, when we were dating attitude.
That's a lie, because we're going to change.
But women find a guy and say, oh, I can change him.
Right.
And so
it's like the opposite.
We're not wanting to change. We're hoping someone does change. And there's this internal tug of war, but we don't talk about it in a healthy way where are we afraid that maybe if I bring it up, is there an argument?
Right.
Will you look at me weird? And, kind of getting a little bit off topic. I remember when you wanted to do a marriage, What did we do? We did a
It
marriage.
was like a marriage weekend or something like that. Weekend to Remember
Right.
is the company's name, which they're coming around soon, so we should go do
Well,
that
and
again.
so I remember it was coming up,
We were
and
newlyweds.
we were kind of newlyweds. We didn't have kids,
Right.
and we weren't that busy that we were like, oh my goodness, can we try to squeeze it in? It was
My
like,
parents pushed me to do it because
well,
when you think of those things, you're like, oh my goodness, like, is it because you're going through something in the marriage? And it's like, no, we just wanted to learn more.
right,
We didn't learn a lot.
right.
So
But saying all that, I remember how I almost didn't make it. I was making, oh, we should do this.
I
And,
was like, nah, bro, we gonna do it.
well, I still was trying to get out of it. And
Because
your
you don't want to.
stepdad was like, no, this will be really good for you. And I was like,
Mhm.
oh, if she wants to go, okay. Like, what are you going to sit in here, like, hold your wife's hand? You're like, you have
No,
this
but
made.
juicy stuff. You
Yes,
liked
but
it too.
I get that. But to get there, you have this pre-made up, like, intention. What am I going to hear?
Right.
I already know it. Like, and realizing that we don't really work on our relationships to make them better and pull ourselves away from the chaos,
Right.
that most people don't just have these dialogues. They don't take time out of their day.
Which you need to, because then you always have these questions
Right.
that are building up. Next thing you know, you're just like, based off of the questions you have that were unanswered, you just get to this place to where it just kind of brings you to a place of like, I don't even know. I don't know what to do. Forget it.
Well,
And
the
then you
most
have your festering bitterness and
right.
what is it, resentment.
So the most impactful thing that came out of that weekend, they recommended to share something if there was something you were ever holding back. There was resentment or scared,
And I think I
like,
unpacked
and you unpack
a
some things.
lot.
And I didn't even like it. Didn't even bother me. I was like,
I
okay,
remember there was a specific thing that the Lord showed me, and it was like one of the deepest, darkest things that
right.
I never told anybody. And I was like, oh my gosh, I gotta tell him this. And I'm like, I have to tell him. And I remember thinking, he's gonna hate me, but we're married. So, but I have to get it out.
He
And I
can't leave
remember,
me because we're married.
yes. So I think they encouraged us to do a date night, wasn't it? So like
Mm-hmm.
we had to go out, dress up, and then go back to the hotel, and they encouraged us to have sex because there was some couples there that were on the brink of divorce,
Right.
and then others that were newlyweds, and so they were just like walking us through this weekend, and it was amazing because I think it was 2 days. You go with a group of other married couples or people that are about to get married, engaged.
There are different layers to it.
Right. And so you show up, they have like different topics that they talk about marriage, things you would never think about. They talk about orgasms. So I was like, Lance was excited. But anyways, they were just talking about different
I love how
things
you
that
throw me over the bus, drive back over, and don't let me rebuttal.
So anyways, they were just talking about different things that you don't think about. They were talking
Right.
about sex. They were talking about communication. One of the exercises we had to do, they're like, we're going to go on a break by yourselves, not even with your spouse. They gave us a paper. We had to write a letter to our spouse. And so we had to
So that's what I was going to say. That was probably the most memorable part of the
yes,
whole trip was the letter you wrote me.
yes,
And it's like, you could write a simple letter, but how often does somebody write a true love letter and just leave it for their partner,
right.
their spouse, hopefully.
So I think even after that, we bought a journal and put it on our nightstand, which, it's a little dusty now, but before kids, and every day we would write something.
No, it wasn't every day. It was just when God put something on our heart, we'd write a piece of story of what we appreciated, and then we'd leave it on the side of the nightstand.
For me to read.
And then write. And so we kind of would trade it. But then I went on for a few months.
Mm-hmm.
And doing little things that everyone thinks that I got to spend $400 on a weekend, getting the hotel room, the nice outfit. But it was I think it was
meaningful.
$15 book at
right.
like a TJ Maxx Marshalls type of store. But it's being creative and not holding it to a holiday to make sure our relationship was being fulfilled.
Right.
And for men, it's all about the spice.
The spice?
Are you going to get the lingerie? Are you going to remember? It's been a minute. And with women, it's like, are you remembering that there's more to me than that?
Right. I'm like, it's emotional for us. So like we can just get into a fight and then you're like, let's go. And I'm like, you just crush my emotions. Like you want me to just feel, let's go, baby.
Right.
Like, and so for women, it's more emotional. Like, that's why I think we like the date nights and we like the romance because we're like, it gets us in the mood. And then you guys are like the compartmentalize. You're able to do that. So you're like, oh, I'll just put that fight behind me.
Right.
And let's go right now.
Right. But it's important to figure out
the rhythm of
the
each other.
rhythm
So you have
because
to take me on date nights, and then I know that
I
you
have
need.
to. I
Yes.
have to.
I'm
But
just kidding.
again, it's about realizing that this relationship's the long game, that
Right.
there's ups and downs. And I think even in the conversation we're having, it's all cute and fun, but nobody takes into account when somebody's like a family member dies or a
Right.
sickness. So many things change,
That person
and
changes.
there's no way to be prepared for traumaticness.
Right.
Like, oh, and I remember when we had Zion
Mm-hmm.
and we had just moved to town. We're trying to figure out and establish a new life in a new city, not knowing anyone. We had no grandma and grandpa's mom and dad's around to
Mm-hmm.
offload. Even though we had wonderful support, there was still nobody that would just scoop the kids and it would just be me and you.
Right.
And so depression started to set in. And it's like when you have somebody you're fighting through depression with and you don't know they're depressed,
Mm-hmm.
you can mislabel them and call them lazy. You can call them self-centered.
Right.
And it's like, if you don't know that they're fighting in an internal pain, you can call them something or mislabel them something that they're not.
Right.
And then it's like, well, it's not fair. You're not loving me. And they're barely able to love themselves
Yes.
into functioning.
And so part of love is being able to see that and be like, I'm going to love you through this. I'm going to
Right.
be patient with you. And so I know even with us in our life, there was many times where I would fall into depression. It was just something that was a cycle that I had to break.
Well, there's a
But
lot of changes,
a lot of changes,
a
right?
lot of hurts, people leaving our lives.
Yes.
Those are emotional, like for women, those are hurtful moments.
Yes. And the definition of true love isn't being like, well, I can't handle this, I'm out. You were like, I'm going to be patient with you. I'm going to love you and pick up the pieces that you can't pick up right now until you're able to get back to that place.
Right.
And so that spoke a lot to me about you because I was like, wow, that's what true love is. And, sometimes I was selfish, but when I would see those things, I'm like, he really does love me, and it's not all about me, me, me. It's about us doing it together and fighting for our marriage and fighting for love. It's
Well,
laying ourselves down for one another.
I'm butchering a little bit of this, but in the Greek, there's like 3 types of loves.
Agape,
Yeah. Phileo,
phileo,
and
and
then
I
there's
don't know
one
the third
more.
one.
But you have these love patterns, and in
I think agape is unconditional.
yeah, and that's where God, how He loves us.
Mm-hmm.
He calls us the bride. We have our spouses,
And
male
our
or
marriage is
female.
representing that, the
Right. We
bride.
die to ourselves to make sure
Mhm.
you're taken care of.
Yes.
And people go, oh, it's a 50-50. No, it's 100% in.
And that's why divorce is on such a high rate because people are like, he didn't make me happy. And then the guy's like, she didn't give me enough sex, or she got fat when she became pregnant, or
Right.
the things, she doesn't look the same. And like you just said, the change, we're going to change. When we become a mom, our body changes, our appearance changes. We get a little thicker. We get a little, like our spiritual father says, you have to be a little bit of a undercover
Chubby
chubby love.
lover.
No, I'm just kidding. But
But it's true
there's
because
that. Then
we,
when your father passes, or for a boy or a man, when your mom passes, like there's big changes that take place
and that's
because
not even
that's your,
accounting tragedy.
yeah. Like what if your spouse gets hit by a truck and they're crippled or something, Like you still have
Leave
to
it to
love them
Alexis
through it.
to find the most.
For real though, are you willing to love? Like there's this one lady on social media, she got burned. Her face doesn't even look the same. And you look at her picture and
Oh,
you're
the
like,
Canadian
you're like,
model.
oh
That's
my goodness, she was a model, and like she looks nothing like that. Like I couldn't even imagine, but he still loves her through it.
but that's where love is more than
More than a
appearance.
look. Right.
And in this culture we live in, it's about the apparel we're wearing. It's
Mhm.
about the makeup. It's about the hair. It's
And when you
about
take that makeup off,
the and now you have implants and you have
fake
contouring
boobies and
the makeup. The joke is that you always
oh
take
my
your
goodness. There's literally a thing on Facebook where they have a video of girls taking it off, and I'm telling you, some of them are like meth addicts and they like have missing
stuff.
teeth, but you literally can have like tape to tape up your back and
Right.
stuff. Like it's crazy.
But it's this, we're going to live a perception of a life that we're not
Mhm.
to make people believe something we're not.
Mhm.
And then when does the truth ever come out?
Right.
And, from a male standpoint, there's so much pressure for us to provide.
Mhm.
There's so much pressure for us to like not crack.
Right.
But everybody cracks under pressure.
Right.
And it's like, what happens when things you thought were supposed to work out don't work out? And you have to go to your spouse, especially as a male, and be like, I tried this and the job is no longer there.
Right.
Or they fired me today And it's like, well, how could you do this? Or I thought you were investing our money in the stock market and then the stock market's down 50%. Well, how come you didn't see that coming?
Right.
Well, I'm sorry, I'm not a rocket scientist.
So that's why communication is
yeah,
key.
and it's also loving us through our mistakes.
We're gonna mess up
because we have this like individual hurt that can get carried into our marriages, and then we put labels on our spouse, and they're not that.
Right. The next thing you know, you're not talking about it. You're not forgiving one another. There's resentment, and then it's like I just don't love them anymore.
Well, you'll
get to that place.
You'll contest to this. I am like my parents.
Yes.
And I can drive you crazy.
Yes.
And I had to learn culturally. There's a whole different way.
We're both.
You guys live differently than truth be told white people live.
Yes.
They're louder, more emotional.
More emotional.
Yeah, like white people hide their like the Southern
That's
charm.
Not true.
If you talk
not
to somebody from the
Southern,
but you know what I'm getting at. And so,
are you kidding me? I mean, Black and Hispanics, they're mostly people that are in gangs and stuff. They're not emotional.
Meaning, like they hype the emotion. What I'm getting at is that I had to learn that some of the stuff you're doing is not Alexis. It's just the way cultures are. They're a little bit louder. Expressive. And some people will be like, "Oh, I don't like the way you're doing that." We're spicy
when I'm bland.
Sure. But any culture has their own style of living, and we can't enforce my way is the right way. And a lot of times you see couples, and the more dominant person will try to find the dominance card quickly and be like, "Oh, I'm." So I had to learn to like figure out your style.
That we are strong women.
Yes, but you're also going to speak your mind.
Right.
You're going to say something. Even if it was right or wrong, you're still going to say it. And then we'll work out of it later.
Yes. I can't just hide it. Like you'll hear those situations with couples where they're like, I didn't even know they were cheating. And I'm like, if I ever had any suspicion or something, I'm going to let you know. I'm not going to just like, I wonder. I'm going to like, what is that? Or, so you'll never have to wonder with me.
But even like the males who are like, I better come home to a house that is fully cleaned.
Right.
I need the meals cooked. And it's like, that's nice. But did you have a rough day?
Yes.
Did the kids not listen? Yeah, you're already letting me know in advance. Sorry. But again, when we don't allow to make sure how is your day going and say, how come you didn't do this?
Then you could get those feelings like you don't even care.
Right. And then rejection is sitting at the door
to
tell you, oh, she's not that good of a wife, or he's not that good of a husband. Do you see what so-and-so's doing? Yeah, you don't know what kind of issues they're fighting. And that's the worst thing, is comparing a relationship.
Yes, that's how you can like end up in this rabbit hole. Back to Valentine's Day.
So,
what is your perspective from a man? Meaning like with that day, like I know that you guys want sex. That's the end result.
That's it. How much is this going to cost me?
So is that why? I mean, I know you said the perspective of that, it shouldn't be that. And I understand. And how like we shouldn't you guys.
But you said in your own words, you're like, you didn't get me the right gift, but you made it up the next day shopping. And it's sad because
it's funny, but it's true.
Some people don't have the finances. So then they let even that wear them down. Well, she doesn't really love me right now because I'm not able to provide for them. And it's really, and that's why I hate holidays, is it puts a perception on us to be something we're not supposed to be.
Right.
We should be in love outside of this day.
Right.
We should show love outside of this day.
Right. But no, I'm just kidding. No, but I mean that makes sense, because from the women's standpoint, we're just like, if you buy me this, if you buy me that, then I'm gonna open it up, But it's like, it shouldn't be like that. It should be like that. We should be loving each other in that way always. You buying me flowers and you teaching the boys to buy me flowers.
Yes.
But do you want to explain that? How cute that is?
So I don't,
because you said that you didn't really see that, but now
I didn't really buy flowers.
The boys.
But I didn't show the boys. This is the scary part, that genetically,
so
there's something. The Puerto Rican side is in our 4-year-old. So we go through Walmart, and our oldest is like, we got to get flowers for mom. I'm like, okay, let's get them. So we get them. And then we go back to the store, and 2 weeks later, it's like, we got to get flowers for mom. And
I know. I was excited. Like, I got one from you, one from Zion, one from Zion.
Well, no, hold on. So then, like, as our littlest one starts recognizing, he's like, what? I need flowers for mom. I'm like, all right, let's. So now we're like trying to find the value flowers because it's now a
The value
$25.
flowers? You can't get me $20 flowers?
If we all get in, we're a hundred in every other. Like I have to now keep them from
There was
the
this
flower
woman
side.
in my school. I was a part of a child development
Here we
class.
go.
She said that no matter where her husband travels or where she travels, every single Monday he sends her flowers.
Right.
And she loves it. She looked forward. She said for 30 years. So one day he came to the school or sent it to the school and she had a beautiful thing of flowers. I was like, I want that one day.
And I think as men,
I know it's extra, but
no, it's
I'm
not
extra
because
I'm your queen. I'm your black queen. Like
nobody said you're not.
uh,
There's a minister by David Hogan. They're in their late or early 70s, and he says he makes a point, no matter where they are in the world, to get her flowers. So when they're traveling, and then it became more of a I want to find the unique flower. It wasn't just
like
about bringing the rose. Like
she's unique.
Yeah, and
a
it didn't
unique flower for a unique gal. Oh,
and it didn't become more of a like this is what I have to do. It became more of a like I want to find something that God created to then show my wife who God created. And it's
that rare gem.
Yeah, and it's like I think as men we start looking as like, do you know how much this costs? They're gonna wilt.
Like you just said, value flowers. Don't even get them next time.
Are you serious?
Yes.
No, you're not.
Yes, I am.
But I love that because the fact that you hear that thing,
like, you better go pick it out of the field. Then we in West Virginia, baby.
But that can hurt your feelings. That's like you're not spending the most amount for me, and that's where things can start to rub that aren't communicated.
Right. I'm just kidding.
No, you're not.
I mean, that would be nice if I saw you out in the field picking up flowers.
I know your type. You would see a little bug that came in on them because they're natural, and you'd be like, get those things out of my house. You would run and maybe burn the house down.
That's funny.
But I like the point is that we can put perceptions on the littlest things, and then it devalues what we once thought was special.
Right.
And we got to like if you can afford the most simplest meal, let it be a little picnic.
Yeah, just a picnic. You gonna give me a picnic?
Well, see.
Okay, so let's talk about the romance thing, right?
Okay.
So you're not that romantic.
No.
And I remember, I think it was my mom or someone. She was like, well, why don't you be the romantic one? And I was like, that just feels so unnatural.
No, it doesn't.
Maybe I'm going to pick out your outfit so we can go on it. Like, I mean, I guess I can. Because, but I feel like that's like as if a woman is engaged to a man. Like
you are not even being fair. I did the whole pick your outfit once, and you looked at me like, you want me to wear that? It wasn't skanky. Yes, it was not skanky. It was not.
It was. I mean,
you had to complain to the color. You're like, what am I supposed to wear with this? So, like, again, this is what I love is the perception.
You've gotten better. You have.
And
your own little way.
You like
no,
in what I want.
Stepping out with romance.
But I'm saying, even when I did that, you're like, you want me to wear? And then I remember you put it on. You're like, I hope you're happy. Oh, like you were shoving it on. Like I wore it for you.
But
are you happy?
That Louis bag, so I was happy. No,
Again, back to my point. It's very difficult. It's not because men will always want sex,
right?
And women will always want to know they're cared for. And then
the most think about sex, they say like literally like 100 times a day or something.
No, it's not. I don't.
No, that's what I heard.
We're trying to get stuff done. When it's like have you had it enough? Do you never? It's like then you get into these weird things of like why do you want it? It should be about connecting and enjoying
not
the person that someone gave you. Because yes, I love where you're going with that. Sometimes I wonder if I didn't save you, where would you go with that? If I just let you. So Alexis,
if you just let me run.
Yeah,
I wonder too.
Where do you want to go with that?
I don't know. I was just laughing because I mean, I don't have the best perspective. Well, I do now, but back then with men because I was around dogs, so it's just like.
And that's a good point too. Is that our upbringing? We always say, "Oh, let our kids find a wholesome wife." We need to, but the odds of finding that are so slim today. We have a messed up past. Like, even though I didn't have this horrific.
I mean, you grew up in Las Vegas. That alone.
Well, that's true. But meaning like I didn't have a body count. I wasn't like promiscuous. But I was married.
Right.
For a long time.
He was married.
So I mean, I have my own set of issues. They weren't this whole set of
But you were
promiscuous.
married, like you knew a whole nother
Well, I know.
person, like
And so then it
for a
becomes
long
like,
time.
yes. And so it's,
And that was like your first love and stuff.
yes.
So I'm like, bruh, like,
But again,
I'm just
we
kidding.
have to work through where God married us and not be like, well, that disqualifies. And people
Now, if you
carry,
had children, I wouldn't know. I'm sorry.
oh,
And I know it's kind of like for me
you
personally,
have to tell them.
'cause I was
I
around
didn't
baby
have
mama
them.
drama and stuff, and I just wasn't willing to. I mean, because I grew up with a stepdad, and he accepted us all in,
And he
which
did an
was amazing.
amazing
He did an
job.
amazing job, yes.
But
But I'm just saying for you,
with that, I think there's so many people in their relationship, dating or married or even potentially wanting to date, that they try to perceive what they want in the person and they'll disqualify them, but they got to
right?
talk through these topics. I bet you there's some skeletons in people's closets that
I
haven't been discussed. They might be married
yes.
4 or 5, 10 years.
I laid it all on the table, baby. I'm
You
like, this is
did.
the good, the bad, the ugly. Take it as it is. We were friends though first,
Yes.
so we didn't think we would ever marry each other.
I love how you go off topic. I can't go off topic. So Valentine's Day.
It's a Valentine's Day.
Yes.
You don't want to go deep?
I thought we
We
did.
do need to come back on and do a
Yes.
special where we talk about our relationship and how we even got here.
Yes.
Because it's been a crazy ride.
Yes. Roller coaster and all.
Yes. But I think that this has been fun.
It's been a good perspective for Valentine's Day,
Yeah.
what this day could be, and make sure you're talking to your spouse.
Right. So do you want to encourage the girls before we go?
How about
Maybe in the with the husbands or anything?
Well,
like what can you
understanding their mindset is we are physical beings.
Right.
And I always kind of joke around is that the only thing that does separate all other women from your wife is that intimacy.
Mm-hmm.
Not just the sexual side, but the hugging,
And
the communication and the being able to share the most intimate parts of our hearth.
Right.
And a lot of times you have to isolate those moments and say, like, I need to share something with you. You don't dump 20 minutes before you're getting to church like an emotional thing, and they're like, I don't care, I'm trying to get my makeup.
You can't process
and then you're like,
and you're
oh, I see you don't care.
I mean,
so
I've done that a few times where it wasn't the right time and I would just throw up on you and you're like, whoa. And
but I've tried to say something and it wasn't a good moment. Like, you need to preface it. Like, we make a doctor's appointment and they say, come back in 3 weeks.
Mhm.
I'll be ready for you. In relationships, we are like, you need to make yourself available.
Like right now.
Right now. It's like, if you don't have something going on, like you don't have your own life, and we have to take into account, you have 100% of Alexis going on.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to make time. You have to choose to make time for me.
Right.
And I, as well as men, we have to make time for our wives. We can't treat you as like, oh, you'll just be there because you have a ring.
Right.
And I think that's the danger spot is.
And that's how the enemy, because he does want to try to divide us.
Right.
He wants to divide a good thing. And so we have to be cautious, or we have to be intentional with making that time for our spouse.
Yeah.
And so this Valentine's Day, instead of just using it as like, oh, I'm gonna get you this and then I'll give you this, we should really think about, I think that we should, as Christians or as a people, really just reflect on a relationship together. Like, go out and talk about the good things and how much you love that person and what you love about them.
Especially if you have kids, not talking about the kids.
Yes.
You always hear that early on in the...
When you first have your kids, we're like looking at pictures. I'm like, babe, I miss them. Like,
but you realize that is as you get older, you sometimes don't develop the relationship. It's almost like the kids are the bond.
And then when they leave,
there's
the
a
marriage
vortex
falls apart. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why it's important to date your husband and to really make sure that you're getting to know him and communicating, because that's the strongest relationship. Next to the relationship with God, your marriage is the second most, it's the biggest decision that you make.
Yep.
Because you're literally taking the kingdom with that person. And I do want to talk about that another day, because sometimes there's a spouse that isn't as spiritual as the other person. But for Lance and I, we literally run and we storm the gates of hell together as a couple.
That's right.
So that's why there was so many things that was coming up against us, because we are a force to be reckoned with for the kingdom.
Yes.
And so I know that the enemy tries to fight us hard in our marriage and tries to divide us and tries to put thoughts in it. And so if we are not using that time or taking that time out to communicate about all the things, then we can literally start to slowly separate from each other because we just have these perspectives that's just holding us back from connecting.
It's good.
And so this Valentine's Day, I hope that this encouraged you, whether you're married or not. And, Lance and I, we just.
And if you're married, be a lover.
Be a lover.
Not a fighter.
Be a lover, not a fighter. But I just hope that this encouraged you with our just bantering, because Lance and I, we're very passionate. And It sounds like we're picking on each other. But
and opinionated.
Yes, we're both very opinionated. But I just really wanted to show you the perspective from a man's point of view of Valentine's and just marriage in general and sex fun. And all the things.
Will you let me back on?
Yes.
All right.
And so I hope that this encouraged you. And I'm actually going to have Lance pray us out. You want to pray us out?
Yep. Lord, I just pray for everybody listening that you would just be with them, married, not married, marriage on the rocks, God. Show them where they're headed. Show them the peace in their own life for first to love themselves. As we are in this day of Valentine's Day, God, it's so difficult if we don't let you love us, because if we're not capable of your love, how can we ever think that we're going to love the spouse that you set before us or the one that is coming? So I pray as this Valentine's Day goes on and as you listen this throughout the week and month, that you would understand that your love is so amazing, that your love covers a multitude of sins, that no matter what we've done, there's always forgiveness there, that there's always your redemption side, even in our gravest mistakes. Even as we make mistakes with our spouses and we ask for forgiveness, when you forgive us, it gives us the capability to forgive others. So I just pray, God, for greater understanding of your love in not only our spouses' lives, but in our own lives, so that we can then show the love of Christ to everyone that we come in contact. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. So I hope that you have a great Valentine's Day. And remember that just like we have to discover all the giftings and the things that God put on the inside of us, marriage is fun because you get to discover the things about your spouse, new things about your spouse, and new things about marriage that you can find that's fun that you could do together. And so it's meant to be a fun thing.
That it is.
And so I hope that you guys have a great day, a great week, and remember to speak life always. And I'll see you next week. Bye.